And, for us, it's really important to think about all the ways as we think about Meta's reach globally, how can we have economic empowerment and how can we influence the economic empowerment to diverse-owned businesses? So for North America, our 5 categories of diversity are women-owned, minority-owned, LGBTQ, veteran, and disabled entrepreneurs. We work actively with suppliers who fall within those 5 categories. Those are suppliers who are both certified and non-certified. That's another kind of intricate thing about the supplier diversity space. But we work with suppliers that are just diverse in general and meet our eligibility criteria. And then we work with them along their journey to determine whether or not certification is the right step for them. So if you have questions about that, happy to answer that as we go into Q&A. We started our program in 2016, so we're exactly 5 years old in terms of when we launched in October 2016. And since 2017, when we began tracking our spend, we've spent $1.7 billion with certified diverse-owned suppliers. The only reason we talk about certified spend is that one of our accounting principles and one of our finance principles is that we report the past with certainty. So when you hear us talk about the numbers, we certainly have more spend with diverse suppliers, but anytime we're talking about a number publicly, we're only talking about suppliers that we can validate were actually diverse and that we know we've had that impact with those suppliers. So we've spent 1.7 billion, and that number will become very significant when I talk to you in a bit about our 2021 goals and what we're trying to achieve this year. But we're really excited about thinking about the influence that our employees have and then how we can play a role in transforming the way that supplier diversity is done. So, as employees around Facebook have made the decision to take action with our team, we've seen some of that transformation take place. So we've seen it with how other diverse suppliers connect to each other. We've created a Facebook community group for our diverse suppliers so that they can connect, they can collaborate, they can ask each other questions. We've also seen it in the way that when we introduce suppliers and they have done business with Meta, and then they are connecting, they've done a great job, and then they get introduced to another team and another team and another team. And so their ability to have an impact on how Meta is doing work, but also growing their business is very important. And so, we just think about how can we continue to influence that? And, where are those success stories? Which we have a number of them. Our team is really about helping diverse suppliers compete and win for business. We are kind of in the trenches, talking to other teams, working with our strategic sourcing managers, and trying to identify diverse suppliers who can operate at the scale and speed that Meta needs. We're talking about diverse suppliers of all sizes that can match up and exceed the capabilities of our incumbent suppliers. For example, one of our team members was in a meeting and they were talking about post-pandemic return to work, which is an ever-evolving concept now, right? But this is the type of project that a major consulting company they were competing to win for this business. And so our team member reached out to the sourcing team, which for a little bit of background, we have what we call sourcing managers and sourcing specialists who are specifically helping with internal stakeholders who have needs to buy goods and services. So they reached out to the sourcing team and asked, hey, can we include one of these diverse suppliers here that we really think would be great for this project? And that diverse supplier won. And so we're always looking for the best suppliers so that we can showcase that, you can do the work. And so another question we get is like, what is Meta buy? Well, a lot of people sometimes have that question because they're thinking about it specifically from a product standpoint. But if you kind of take a step back and think about the fact that we are a corporation, that we have physical locations just as much, even though we haven't fully returned to work yet. And so we buy any and everything. So as you see on this slide, we are buying anything from enterprise engineering needs as it relates to IT software to professional services. And, we talk about contingent workforce, meaning temporary contingent work that we have a number of labor needs that can't always be filled by our full-time employees. So, there's everything from HR and employee benefits, and then the things that everyone always thinks of as well in terms of marketing and experiential events. So this is just a small subset of the categories that we use for purchasing and the services that we're buying. But if you think about us like a normal corporation, you think about your business, there's usually a good fit in terms of, would we buy this? Possibly. And so that's where we try to make those connections and help people understand what we're buying and when we're buying it, our timelines, etc. So I mentioned that we're a global program. I just want to call out our global team because this is just like the most amazing interdisciplinary team. And so our roles and responsibilities range from data analysts to data analysis to operations to, we also have sourcing managers on our team. So we have people that are responsible for marketing and experiential, as well as all the other categories you saw on that previous slide. We also have representation from across the globe. So if you see this bottom row of smiling faces, Thais, who starts on the left, is actually our first full-time person in the LATAM region. She works with Patty, who's on the far right of this bottom row, Patricia Gandolfi, who is also based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And so again, they're working and focusing on the LATAM market. Thais also provides support to Sylvia, who's right next to her in the blue, who's in our APAC region, which is Asia Pacific, and then Crystal Sands, who helps and is one of our leads for the EMEA region, which represents Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So this is a team that's committed to building supplier diversity into the end-to-end buying experience. A little background, our team sits in finance, and then even furthermore, we sit in the source to pay organization. So we're right next to where we're making decisions around what suppliers we're using, how do we onboard suppliers, when do we pay suppliers? And so we're able to influence things such as payment terms for suppliers. We know that this is a big issue. And so we currently have net 7 payment terms for our diverse suppliers because we know how important it is for them to get paid. All other suppliers are at payment at terms, which means if your contract says 90 days, they don't get paid until 90 days. That's not the case for our diverse suppliers. And this is important to have this team because we are advocating to make sure that it is easier for qualified suppliers to get onboarded, to start providing value to Facebook teams, and then to get paid for the valuable work that they're doing. So we also created a program in a way that supports the needs of our diverse suppliers. A lot of times when we talk to diverse suppliers and you say, okay, well, I need you to register, there's just this immediate groan because they just feel their information is going to go into a black hole. We tried to avoid that. We really want to be thoughtful. Meta has tens of thousands of employees. And so we had to think about, for a team that was relatively small in relation to the total number, and for an organization where buying is decentralized, that means any employee can buy anything at any point in time. How do we make sure that diverse suppliers are readily available? So we created what we call Diesel, which is our diverse supplier locator. And essentially what Diesel is it is a internal tool that any Meta employee can access, and they can search for diverse suppliers. So these are diverse suppliers who are already onboarded with us, diverse suppliers who've registered with us. It's keyword, it's location, it's even category based that you can do your searches to identify diverse suppliers you can do work with. Why that's important, we certainly have forums that we can provide assistance to our colleagues to help them find diverse suppliers, but this is a self-service tool. So the number of people who are able to just go and find diverse suppliers without even contacting us is really important. Secondarily, Diesel is important because in our contracting system, if you're requesting help with a contract or trying to find a supplier to fill your needs for something you want to buy, we have these what I call positive points of friction, where you can certainly put in a list of suppliers you'd like to work with, but our system is smart enough to recognize, like, If you don't have a diverse supplier in the mix, it's going to ask you, would you like to include one? And then if you don't, it'll ask you why you didn't. And why that's important is it's going to help us create data to understand which categories do we not have diverse supplier representation, and where can we go out and recruit more diverse suppliers, or what's the feedback that we're getting about why they didn't include the diverse suppliers who are available. So just better data points that allow us to better serve our employees, which therefore hopefully will lead to more opportunities for diverse suppliers. Secondarily, I'm just going to talk to you about Supplier Spotlight, which is another program that we started during the pandemic. You know, we weren't able to go out to events like we normally would and meet suppliers, but we still wanted to have that touch point and connect with more eligible suppliers. So we created Supplier Spotlight. This is an on-demand meeting experience where suppliers who want to meet with our team to introduce themselves, they're actually able to just go to our Facebook and our Instagram page and click book now, and then it allows you to book the meeting. I'll give you this caveat because it is December 14th. We currently do not have any meetings available for the rest of the year or even anything available in the calendar year for next year. And why that is because our team cares about iteration and making sure that it's the best experience for the suppliers. So we actually closed down a couple of weeks ago, and we're in the process of revamping the program so that it will be an even better experience for the suppliers. We'll have more clear direction, etc. So if you're interested in booking with our team, you'll be able to go to our Facebook and our Instagram page in the next year, and then you'll be able to click book now. But I would say look out for that late January, early February, because we give our team the ability to settle in, because this is a commitment throughout the year when we do start it. So Supplier Spotlight is a really great opportunity. It's 15 minutes just for you to pitch our team, tell us about your capabilities, what you do best, what you've done for similar companies. And it is just, you know, the way that you want to think about pitching other stakeholders in Meta. And so one of the things we do is when we do find a great supplier, we have an internal channel called Supplier Spotlight, where we then promote the suppliers we've met, and then people who represent those different categories that the supplier works in are able to identify suppliers that they can do business with. And so if you haven't noticed, there's this theme about like community and connection. And so what you see playing on the screen here is just a video from our Diverse Supplier Virtual Summit that happened in 2020. This year, we were actually really fortunate that we had our first ever Latinx virtual showcase. And so that was a really great opportunity for us, similar to the summit, to bring diverse suppliers directly with the buyers and the sourcing managers for their categories. We had suppliers who were able to do presentations. And why this is so phenomenal is that, you know, we recognize that our team, for the most part, most of us are generalists. I wouldn't say the same for Nelson and Leslie, as they have a number of years of expertise in marketing and experiential. However, when you talk to me, I'm not going to know everything about your category just because it's not the thing that I do every day. So we try to put you in front of the stakeholders who can tell you exactly, yes, we're buying this, or they will understand that acronym you use. I won't be able to do that. And so our events are designed to put you in front of people who, you know, can answer your questions, who can help you understand how to connect with us, when to follow up, etc. And so that's really important to us as we continue to think about building community. So not only having them connect to us, but then also connecting to other suppliers. And then I mentioned certifications. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept, just a very brief and high level, there are opportunities for you to certify your business as a woman-owned business, for instance, or a racial ethnic minority-owned business. We on the screen, these are our partners that we're working with across the globe. in particular for certain certifications. This is not exclusive of all the certifications that you are. So City of Los Angeles may have a certification. The state of California has a certification. In fact, it's the California Public Utilities Commission. I know that well, having worked on Super Bowl 50 in the Bay Area and encouraging suppliers to go through that certification. Why do we encourage certification? Well, there's a number of things. One, there are development opportunities. Certainly you're connected to Liz LA, who's giving you some great information, but when you want to have even more connections to corporations, usually it's those certification agencies who have corporate members who can therefore have you participate in matchmaker events and other events that allow you to get exposure to those corporations and have those conversations about your business so that you can pitch for your goods and services. Another thing is just the development and then also the networking. So you as a business owner may have subject matter expertise where you can host workshops. So again, you can get your brand out there, or you may need some help. And so when you think about just skill building for you, for your team, the different subject matters that or different subjects that these certification agencies put on as part of their workshops or their annual conferences could be really helpful to your business. So the one thing that we know about certification is that there is a cost. So for some of these organizations, particularly those featured on the screen. So the one thing that we encourage suppliers to do is kind of do a self-audit, decide like, where are you in this process? If it's not a cost that you can commit to, determining if you need to go more of a local route, a city, a state, etc. route, and going somewhere where you can get and kind of dip your toe in the water and see, okay, I think this is something that we want to explore. And the reason why we also say that is not only from a cost in terms of money standpoint, but it's also a time cost. There's usually a great amount of time put into this to pursue a certification. So if it's not something your business is ready for, don't feel bad about it at all. Full disclosure, I was an entrepreneur and knew about certification and never pursued it just because of the time and intensity it takes. If I were to ever go back, I would do it again. So I do see the value in it, and we do encourage suppliers to get certified as well. And then speaking of certification, so if you remember, I said we only report our spend with certified diverse suppliers. And so this year for 2021, in lieu of some of the conversations we were having about economic justice and just generally social justice conversation, there was an announcement from Facebook at the time, now Meta, around just our commitment to Black-owned businesses and to diverse-owned businesses. And so publicly, we put out a commitment that we would spend $1 billion with certified diverse suppliers starting in 2021, and then we would spend $100 million with Black-owned businesses. I just want to pause here because I think that there were a lot of commitments coming out of corporations at the time. But I think what's so important for you to understand in terms of our team's commitment is that we actually have that 1 billion goal on the books for several years in advance. And the reason why I point that out, and in fact, I actually had a chance to see a picture where we had sketched out our goals for 2021, and it had the 1 billion at the end. It's just that this is a long-standing commitment. When we talk about this year's goal, we talk about 1 billion and beyond, meaning that this is just the start because transparency is important to us, and in full transparency, when we think about what that 1 billion means in relation to Meta's total spend, we know that we'll still be behind the curve in terms of what the average percent of spend is with diverse suppliers. So for those of you who are familiar with the significance of the $1 billion in the supplier diversity space, know that our team is pushing beyond that, know that our team is not doing it for any accolades or awards. We're just simply looking at where can we make the impact with our team, Where can the company itself make impact, and how can we move forward? So more to come on how we are doing with hitting those goals as we grow closer to December 31st. Just know that our team, and we have our eyes on our dashboards. And I think it's important to know that, we really took these goals to heart and tried to socialize them internally. So we've put together a campaign. We did a lot of conversations with budget owners who had targets for their groups. And so we have done a lot more to think about how do we influence the way that Meta works with diverse suppliers in the years to come. So the next big question that we get is like, how do we connect with our team or with your team? So one, I will say, is to register your business. Another caveat, our form may not be the best. So it may not be working if you go to it. And if that's the case, then on the next slide, there's an email address you can email, and we will help you and assist you with registering. We're in the process of transforming. We're a tech company, so we're in the process of transforming things to allow a better registration experience. But you can register your business. You do not have to be certified to register with us. It's simply like you raising your hand saying, hey, I'm interested in doing business. Here's my company. You can learn more. Secondarily, you can book a supplier spotlight appointment. Just a reminder again, look for openings to happen late January, early February for the rest of the year. And then you can follow up with us. So let's say you do have a conversation with our team. It's tricky knowing when to follow up, when to not, but know that we have a flood of inbound information that's coming to us. So my tip to people is, if you have something that has significantly changed about your business, or you see something that's happening with Meta that is very relevant to your business, and you want to send that reminder of, hey, we can actually help you with that, that's the best time to follow up with us. But I would say take caution in just following up because it's been 2 weeks and you haven't heard from us. Things move very fast. There are a lot of moving priorities, and we do prioritize our diverse suppliers. However, we are working with stakeholders based on their needs as well. So if you want to connect with our team, again, our Meta branding is very new, so you will still connect with us at supplierdiversity@fb.com. So I would prefer if you would like to connect, even if you want to follow up with me, supplierdiversity@fb.com. The reason why is because depending on your category, I'm going to send you directly to Natalie and Nelson or Leslie, who have those who has access to that inbox. So our whole job is to try to get you to the right person who can talk to you about your category, as opposed to talking to me, then having to have another conversation, etc. Your time as an entrepreneur is very valuable. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at Meta Global Supplier Diversity. And then currently on Instagram, we're still Facebook Supplier Diversity, but hopefully soon we'll be changing to Meta Global Supplier Diversity. I know people like to send LinkedIn invites. I will say right now, we don't have a full LinkedIn strategy. So even if you send it to me, I'm really terrible at LinkedIn. So again, the best way to contact us, you can even use Messenger on Facebook or Instagram, or just email the supplierdiversity@fb.com. So with that is my presentation. I'm happy to take questions. So Selena, I will take my cues from you.
Thank you so much, Lamicia. That was definitely very informative, and I'm so grateful that you would spend the time with us today to walk through Facebook's awesome supplier diversity resources and programs. So as Lamicia mentioned to all the folks here, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat right now, and I can go ahead and read them for Lamicia. And again, as Lamicia mentioned, if you want to get in contact with Facebook Supplier Diversity, you can shoot an email to supplierdiversity@fb.com. We also will be sharing the recording of this webinar today on our website, which is linked in the chat. And yeah, so we have a question. Can you place the link to signing up in the chat? So, Amicia.
Yeah, so technically, yes, but you wouldn't have any appointments there. Basically, if you were to go to the Facebook our Facebook page, which is at Meta Global Supplier Diversity, or go to our Instagram. There's literally a book now button on those pages, and that's where you would go to book.
Thank you for clarifying, Lamicia.
Mhm.
Great. Any other questions? Please, as I mentioned, just feel free to drop them in the chat. So we have another question submitted anonymously. What type of businesses do you engage with in Los Angeles?
So it ranges. I don't know all of our businesses just because there's so many that we're working with. But I will say I know that we've worked with a what they call an inclusive design studio called BN, which I actually had a chance to do a panel with Ricardo, who's the owner, a couple of months ago. We work with another event and production agency called FGPG. It's based out of LA. There's also Boatwright Simon Pick and Sound, which is a digital like video production. So it just ranges. I know that a lot of those were in the marketing and creative space, but those are the three that I've had a lot of connections with most recently. So those are top of mind for me. But if you remember that slide, again, we're purchasing everything from HR, people who can do trainings, D&I trainings, etc. So it's not just it's not just based on where you are. I would say it's more of the scope and what our needs are.
Thank you. Just piggybacking on that question, do you even contract like diverse zone caterers?
Yes. So, we haven't seen as much of that because we're not gathering right now. But, that is a lot of we were heavy on events. And so when we're thinking about, what are the connections that are happening, diversity is really important at Meta. So we have what we call resource groups. So we have a Latinx group, we have a Black Act group, Women Act, etc. So as those teams and groups get together, sometimes they would have events where they bring in catering, or there's just an event. For us, when our team traveled, I was always looking for, what's the diverse zone caterer that we could utilize if we were hosting an event at our offices. So yes, we do use diverse zone caterers.
Awesome, that's great to hear because I know we have in our cohort, at least we do have in our digital accelerator cohort, we do have some food businesses, and I know that there's a large space in LA for food and catering and food and beverage businesses. So it's great to hear.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, I would say like sometimes it's not always just our team that you have to make the connection to. So I'll give an example of that. So one of the ways that we would try to connect a caterer would be to make sure that our facilities and amenities team for LA are aware of your business, as they have preferred supplier lists that they're trying to work through. And so making sure that they're aware of diverse businesses in the area. The other thing is that sometimes we have businesses that approach us that we would say are more business to consumer. So you may have a jewelry business, or even some of the food may be more snack related and not necessarily something that we can have in our micro kitchens or just specifically for an event. So our work is to identify, again, facilities and amenities who, when we were back in the office, and hopefully we will still get back to this, but we would hold pop-ups. And so you would have the ability to do a pop-up shop for your business, and then employees could come and support. So we think beyond just our team in terms of how do we provide opportunities to connect diverse suppliers to other parts of Meta that are looking and want to highlight and improve the outcomes.
Great, that is so lovely. And you mentioned maybe even doing pop-ups. That's fantastic, especially as things start to reopen. And just building on that, does Facebook or Meta have any upcoming events in 2020 that we should be aware of that small businesses can put on their radar for in the coming year?
Yeah, I am not aware of any, and I think that's because our team does sit outside of some of the larger events. But I would say resources, if you didn't hear about these, but our Boost with Facebook program, that would be something that I'd say Google, follow the page, etc., because a lot of the resources that are there, and if there are any events, I know there've been a lot of virtual events, and then as they approach just the different diversity celebrations that happen throughout the calendar year, there's sometimes different specific programming that you can tap into as well. So I would advise that, like, in this next year, you'll probably still see more virtual events for us for a while, or there may start to be a hybrid. But I think following different resources such as Boost with Facebook, I'll give a plug to the Elevate program, which is specifically to help Latinx and Black owned businesses learn how to use Facebook products and tools, and that's inclusive of Instagram, etc. But if you are a Black or Latinx owned business and you want to learn more about it, you certainly look up the Elevate program. There's just incredible resources, incredible trainings, helping you get digital certifications, which then again helps promote your business and helps promote your expertise.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of great programs and opportunities coming up. So even if we don't have those events locked in yet, there's definitely still a lot of work that can be done with Meta and the Facebook family of apps that our small businesses in LA can take advantage of. So seeing that there are no other questions in the chat, I wanted to extend a warm thank you again to Lamicia for joining us today. I believe you're calling in from Texas, so from a different time zone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We at LISC are very appreciative of your time and your expertise, and I'm sure our small business owners can say the same. And so as we wrap up, just another reminder that this session has been recorded and we are posting it on our website linked in the chat. And if you have any other questions and follow-up, again, please reach out to supplierdiversity@fb.com and you'll be redirected to a representative that can help you with your specific need. And for other small business programs and resources, please feel free to reach out to LISC LA at LACOVIDfund@LISC.org. So with that, we'd like to wrap up the program. And again, thank you, and we'll be in touch. Everybody have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you all. Bye.